Welcome back to Outside Views, and we're going to talk today about a financial comparison that is absolutely essential to understanding the UK's current economic fate. And the subject is a brutal one. Brexit is a bigger catastrophe for Great Britain than the 2008 financial crisis. And my personal view is that this statement, once considered hyperbolic, is now scientifically, economically, and devastatingly true. And the fact that the political class refuses to acknowledge it, well, the majority of them at least, is a national scandal. But let's start with the cold hard numbers, because they tell a story that political rhetoric cannot obscure. The 2008-2009 financial crisis was without a doubt a seismic event. It caused a massive immediate shock that saw the UK's GDP per capita shrink by 5.3% in 2009. It was a terrifying sharp plunge that required immense governmental intervention to prevent a total collapse. And now let's look at the slow motion disaster that is Brexit. New research combining a massive macroeconomic approach with detailed firm level data paints an even darker picture. And the most recent estimates show that by 2025, the UK's GDP per capita is projected to be around 6 to 8% lower, not 6 to 7, than it would have been if the UK had remained in the European Union. 6 to 8%. And that cumulative loss has already surpassed the peak single-year hit of the 2008 financial crisis. And the reason this damage is so much more insidious, well, it is because it's a slow burn hit, a structural decay rather than a sudden shock. You know, it might be a disturbing picture, but you know the tale about the frog in the pot where you slowly heat up the water that he would stay there. And that's kind of, for some time I'm thinking about the UK, although it really pains me because I used to live there, I have friends there, I really like the UK, and I like their nations. I have friends in Wales, I have friends from Northern Ireland, I have friends living in England, and I have even step, but still family in Scotland. This is a pain to say that, and that I imagine that country always with this picture of the frog. Oh boy. But the authors of the research used a sophisticated methodology to arrive at this crushing conclusion. And they created a synthetic twin economy for the UK, meticulously constructed from parts of 33 other advanced economies to model precisely how the UK should have grown without the Brexit constraint. And the comparison is undeniable. The UK has diverged sharply from its natural economic path. But the damage goes deeper than just GDP. The economic wounds are inflicted on the very engines of future prosperity. And this is the most crucial metric for future growth. And this is estimated to have been crushed by a massive 12 to 18%. Businesses simply stopped investing in the UK due to uncertainty and trade friction. And the total number of people employed is estimated to be lower by 3 to 4%, as I already talked about this last week. And the nation's ability to efficiently produce goods and services is down by 3 to 4%. And these are not just minor losses. These are systemic failures that have resulted in a cumulative decline greater than the cost of the last great global financial catastrophe. The core mechanism of this self-inflicted wound is a negative supply shock. Brexit, by raising trade barriers and sharpening uncertainty, has acted as a massive brake on the economy. And this is not a demand problem that can be fixed with a quick injection of cash. It's a structural impediment that makes it fundamentally more expensive and complicated to do business. And the result is weak economic growth paired with high inflation and elevated interest rates. The very definition of stagflationary pressure. At 4.0%, the UK currently maintains the highest benchmark interest rate among developed economies, directly burdening the state with significant debt service costs. And while the Bank of England may shave off a quarter point or something, the economic outlook remains deeply constrained by an inflation rate of 3.6%. and the government is trapped. It needs lower rates to stimulate investment, but the persistent supply side shock of Brexit keeps inflationary pressure high. And what makes this catastrophe truly staggering is the political response, or rather the lack thereof. Despite the clear scientific evidence of economic devastation, the architect of Brexit, Nigel Farage, and his party, Reform UK, are currently leading in the polls, commanding around 27% support compared to Labour's 18%. And this is the most incredible, disheartening testament to the fact that, for a massive segment of the voting public, economic reality plays only a severely subordinate role in their political choices. The emotional appeal of sovereignty and immigration control, however delulu, continues to trump the hard numbers on jobs, investment and living standards. And voters are actively embracing the very force that has demonstrably made them poorer. Yes, Nigel Farage has made you poorer. And I think it's vital to contrast this self-imposed wound with what is happening elsewhere. The same economic model used to calculate the cost of Brexit is being used to warn of the dangers of new American tariff policies, where the US's massive duty hikes are expected to act like a negative supply shock comparable to Brexit. The entire developed world is watching the UK as a cautionary tale, a real-time experiment in the costs of trade isolation. And meanwhile, the European Central Bank and the EU are rightly focused on deepening the European single market, knowing that this is the key to significant positive growth impulses for the entire continent. And the lesson for Europe is clear. Integration is the engine of prosperity. The lesson the UK continues to ignore is that fragmentation is poverty. The 2008 crisis was an exogenous shock, a flaw in the global financial system that crashed onto British shores. It was painful, but it was repairable because the underlying fundamentals of the UK economy, particularly its access to the largest single market in the world, remained intact. Brexit is different. It's an endogenous structural shock, a deliberate national political choice that has fundamentally and permanently damaged the UK's trading relationship with its nearest and largest market. It's not an event that can be overcome by printing money or by temporary stimulus. It requires a fundamental reversal of policy, and until that happens, the cumulative losses will continue to mount year after relentless year. The long-term self-inflicted damage is more profound and more persistent and ultimately more catastrophic than the temporary pain of the 2008 financial crisis. We are witnessing a decade of squandered potential, and the worst part is that a political segment of the country is celebrating the very policies that are driving them towards stagnation. The economic perspectives for Great Britain are not merely gloomy, they are structurally compromised for the foreseeable future.